the recording and call our, so I'm calling the meeting of the UNNC Planning and Zoning Committee to order on December 15, 2021 at 7:06 p.m. And Chris is also joining on the phone.
I'm joining by phone.
Hi, Chris. So
Hi.
I'm going to share the agenda. And here we go. Is it visible to whoever?
Laura, I'm actually trying to now get onto, I've gotten back where I can be by my computer. I'm going to try to come in on the.
Okay.
Okay. But
yeah,
I was
so let's do this though. Since I'm sharing the screen at the moment, I may or may not see you to admit you. So I'll do the screen share very quickly and then stop the share. So I would like to draw everybody's attention to the first thing on the agenda, which is a determination to continue to hold meetings virtually. And the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners has the authority to adopt and has adopted findings pursuant to AB 361 that basically determined that due to the COVID-19 state of emergency, meeting in person would present imminent risks to the health or safety of attendees. So this meeting is being conducted virtually. I'm going to ask us to approve the agenda first. Well, welcome and call to order. But before we do introductions, I'd like to just ask if we can approve the agenda. So I've got it posted.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Yes, you may, Teresa.
Can we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so is there any opposition? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. So the first item on the agenda is public comments. Second item is council file number 21-1395, which is a city council motion relative to abandoned gas and oil wells and their remediation. Item 3 is the proposed draft SB 9 resolution, council file 21-1414, and this is per the governing board directive, a discussion of how should we add any language for affordable housing. And item 6 would be follow-up, if any, to previous cases, ENS and old business. I'm going to stop the share. And hi, Chris. Glad to see you here. Did I let you in, or did this meeting allow you to just enter without that?
To come on. I don't think you
I don't, my mind is so gone, I don't even remember that. Okay, so introductions. I'm Laura Myers. I am the co-chair of UNNC Planning and Zoning Committee. John Arnold is the chair, and he will be arriving, but late. He had a work conflict. And if we can go around and introduce ourselves, starting with Chris, because there you are on the screen with me.
My name is Chris Carlson. I am the co-chair of the Oil and Gas Subcommittee of the Planning and Zoning Committee, along with Steve Peckman, and I'm also a board member on the governing board as an Area 4 rep.
Thank you. I'm just going to go down in order. Teresa.
Hi, everybody. I'm Teresa Masonette. I'm also a board member with the United Neighborhoods Neighborhood Council, and I represent the West Adams Avenues.
Yeah, Steve.
Steve Peckman. I'm the co-chair of the Oil and Gas Subcommittee with Chris Carlson, and I'm a resident of Jefferson Park, just a few blocks from the Murphy oil site.
Okay, and thank you. And Donna.
Hello, everybody. I'm Donna Jones from the West Adams Avenues, acting chairperson of our community. Hello, everybody.
Thank you, Donna. Okay, and then so I will want to say a few things, protocol things. Mainly, we do have the chat open, and the purpose that we use the chat for is to do things like post agenda, I mean, not post agenda, post motions. If somebody's having trouble raising their hand virtually, they could put a note in the chat about, I'm having trouble, please call on me. And sort of some housekeeping items. Lately, people have been using the chat to say hello to everybody, and also to post links if they had a link, even in their public comments. The reason I'm bringing all of this up is the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment reluctantly is saying, okay, we know you want to use chat, go ahead, but the chat will be appended to your minutes of any meeting that you use the chat. So, so I just want to tell everybody that everything you write, no matter what it is not just recorded, but will now be appended to meeting minutes of this committee and any other committee that or governing board that you may attend. Okay, and hi, Steve. There you are. Okay, so so the next item on the agenda is public comments on any matter not on this agenda, but within the purview of the UNNC Planning and Zoning Committee, its subcommittees, or the governing board of UNNC. Does anyone have any public comments? Seeing none, let's move on to the first item on the agenda, which is Council File number 21-1395, City Council motion relative to the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health / Community Health Safety and Notification Plan, land use, environmental review, permitting, and remediation of abandoned gas and oil wells. And it's a citywide motion. Okay, and we have a bit of a okay. We have a little bit of a emergency in the other room here. Steve, would you, what I don't know, Steve or Chris, do you want me to make you co-host? Do you have any of the materials that you wish to share?
I do have the materials.
Okay, and you know how to share. So then what I'd like to do is make you a co-host.
Great.
And I'm going to turn off my video for a second and walk to the other room and see what happened on the cooking side of the equation in this household.
Okay, thanks, Laura. Again, I'm Steve Peckman. I'm the co-chair of the Oil and Gas Subcommittee of the UNNC. Can everyone see the motion document? And you could turn your cameras on. It's easier to talk to people if I can see.
It's visible.
I can see
Great.
the document.
Good, thank you. So it appears that Gil Cedillo is concerned about abandoned oil wells in his district, which is certainly a laudable concern. The materials were all posted on the UNNC website and were linked in the email. So the motion goes through a bit of history, and there's also a press release from Council Member Cedillo's office. I'm just going to scroll down to the bottom where the motion is. So what Council Member Cedillo's motion and proposal is to instruct the Petroleum Administrator to consult with the Department of City Planning, Building and Safety, Fire Department, LA Public Health Department, the County Public Health Department, to prepare and present a report with policy recommendations on how to integrate the document titled Community Health Safety and Notification Plan, prepared by the Department of Public Health and the city's land use, environmental review, and permitting processes related to real estate development activities on sites with abandoned gas oil wells. So apparently there are some abandoned gas oil wells in Councilman Cedillo's district that actually exist on private property. So this is a motion to do some investigation and come up with a plan to ensure the safe capping and of these wells. I didn't see any issues with this motion. I think it's going to take a long time for them to get this kind of work done in terms of all the city processes with the various departments that they want to include. Chris, do you have any comments on this as co-chair?
No, I see it's a very, you know, kind of self-evident thing that the city should be wanting to do. And as I read it, it only applies to sites that have abandoned oil and gas wells, not necessarily active working wells, if there are no abandoned wells. One of the things that's missing, certainly on a local level, but also I think pretty much on a state level, is there is no complete inventory for the state, the county, or the city of all existing abandoned oil wells. So I would hope that the council also makes a motion to ask the oil administrator to work with the state agencies to help contribute to build that. So there's a public available, transparent inventory of all abandoned wells that might fall under this particular action. But that's an addendum, something that hopefully that will come as part of this putting in place. But the basic motion, I think, is sound and is well needed.
Okay, great. I think that's a very important caveat that you mentioned there. Does anyone else in the meeting have any comments about Councilmember Cedillo's motion and whether the UNNC should support it? That, as far as I understand the process, is that we could entertain a motion to recommend to UNNC to support Councilmember Cedillo's motion, or we can not do anything about it or provide reasons why it shouldn't be supported. I think having a public database of all the wells in the city with a designation of active, idle, plugged, buried, abandoned would be really helpful. I also think that as part of the abandonment process and the plugging, there has to be some methodology for the city to put into place, whether it's a fund that all the oil exploiters pay into to ensure that all of these sites get plugged and deactivated in an appropriate way, as opposed to companies going bankrupt, abandoning oil wells, and then leaving it for the city to pay for the plugging and safe remediation of the sites. So I would hope that the city looks into that as well.
There actually is a fee structure where all active production contributes money to a fund whose purpose is supposed to be that at the state level. But one of the problems has been this lack of transparency on where are the abandoned wells, which ones are actually presenting by priority the greatest problems and should be addressed first. And the state has not been aggressive at resolving records of ownership, because of course the ideal thing is to have the primary producers to be the ones who clean up. But there is actually a fund, and I don't know what its monetary value is at this day and time, designed for just that purpose when all other options fail. But it would be nice for all of us to have greater knowledge about the process that the state and in line of that, the local agencies would follow to make these determinations, to get the job done, and to know where the monies and funds should or would or can come from.
Excellent points, Chris. Laura, you raised your hand.
Yeah, so I also took a look at the press release from Gil Cedillo and related to the visit by Deb Helen to LA. And apparently the part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act allocates $4.7 billion for the cleanup of oil wells across the country, not just here, but that's what Gil Cedillo is trying to get a chunk of that money for City of LA.
Right, so he's trying to tap into that fund.
Well, she came here to do the press conference, so I'm thinking he's successfully getting some of it. And
so I think we have a motion, which is to recommend to the board that it support Councilmember Cedillo's motion. with an amendment that the city do everything possible to maximize transparency by posting on the website an inventory of the wells, including those that are abandoned, right? Giving them the appropriate notation. As he notes in the motion here, he has active, idle, plugged, and buried, but he doesn't have a notation for abandoned. And that it would be very helpful for the citizens of LA to know what that inventory looks like, and actually to know where those wells are located. But
Okay, so
I'm
typing much too slowly for you, Steve.
Teresa, do you have a comment?
Yes, I just want to say, Steve, that I agree wholeheartedly with you and Chris. I also would like to say that having a database, now it could be that this information is available to future homeowners already through Zemus or some other program, but in 20 years, if you were not in our community, but in a Gills community where there may be private wells that are capped, if you go to buy a home and it's, you know, several acres, you may not know that there was once an oil field, an oil extraction point or whatever there. So to have a database where you can go in and look and find out what's happening, and this is in the future for like 20 years or 25 years when people have moved and the history may not be as readily available. If there was a database, then a regular person could find out, not necessarily having to go through the title and all that other stuff too.
That would be great. Laura, you had another comment?
Well, I have another comment, and also you can see I couldn't keep up at all, so I don't have your amendment, just the adopted community impact statement supporting the motion, but amending it to add ... But the comment I have is one of the amendments should be, because this says gas and oil wells, but if you're talking about a database of some sort, it's also the private gas stations that sometimes people don't know were on or are on their property. I mean, we just encountered one within the last year and a half in Lafayette Square. Oops.
Okay.
You know, I mean, so in others for the database, but what would be the language after amending it to add
Chris,
that?
do you have any concern about adding gas stations?
I think jurisdictionally that falls under another whole regulatory entity. But I can look into that. I actually don't know Dogger and the state are not, you know, they don't monitor and regulate commercial retail gas stations.
Yeah, Chris, I'm sorry. This was a private, what we found, David could be more specific because I'm forgetting. There was apparently, I'm saying gas station, gas, whatever, it was a private gas station for the homeowner 100 years ago on his own property in Lafayette Square, and then abandoned, but by the way, not totally. So the question is the database, not this federal monies. I mean, I don't
Are you sure that it was a gas station and not an actual well? Because this motion actually is triggered by the fact that there are private homes that have wells still on the property.
Let me just yell across the room. David, in Lafayette Square in Victoria, was that a private gas station or an oil well? Was that a private gas station in the garage on Victoria that we just sold?
Yeah,
it was a
private gas station, private gas tank.
Private gas tank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we could look into it, but let's consider the motion that we have.
Okay.
Which is to recommend to the governing board that there be an impact statement written in support of Council Member Cedillo's motion, and that it be amended to ensure adequate transparency, maximum transparency in terms of an inventory of wells in the city. So he has here in his motion, he has active, idle, plugged, and buried, and it would be good to have a category of abandoned as well as the locations for all those wells.
Mhm.
A publicly available database would ensure transparency.
I
Okay.
second the motion.
Who seconded that?
Okay,
Chris Carlson seconds.
Okay.
okay, moved by Stephen. I missed the second.
Chris seconded.
Okay. And does that sort of look, forgetting the misspellings for a second, sort of look like what you're talking about in the chat?
Yeah, something like that. You know, to ensure maximum transparency, that the city develop a publicly available database
Mhm.
of a complete inventory of oil wells, including active, idle, plugged, buried, and abandoned, and their locations.
Plugged. Okay, active, idle,
Plugged,
plugged,
buried,
buried, and
and
abandoned.
abandoned, and their locations.
Does that more accurately reflect it
Let's see, I have to look at the new message.
as a motion?
I think that does. Chris, did you take a look at it? You're on mute.
Yes, that looks good.
So we should vote on this motion, but I would also ask Steve that you and Chris develop a little more full-fledged reflecting this community impact statement, because we print the CISs on the agendas. So I can share with you in more detail, but essentially it can be less than, but no more than about 1850 characters and spaces. And then we add the part about the United Neighborhoods of the historic, you know, Arlington Heights, Jefferson Park. Anyway, maximum is 2,000, but there's other language. So so we can do a motion here and then flesh out a CIS more privately and get it printed on the
Okay,
governing
great.
board agenda.
So we can do that. We have a motion and a second and a call for the vote. Or I'm sorry, is there any more discussion? I don't see any.
I don't see any.
So we can call for the vote.
Okay, so you can all either raise your video hands or your virtual hands.
So I see hands raised for Teresa,
Well,
Chris, Donna,
apparently I have to raise my
Laura,
real hand.
Steve. Brittany, did you want to vote yes or no or abstain?
She's
Brittany
abstaining.
abstains. Okay, so we have a final vote of 5 in favor, none opposed, and 1 abstention.
Okay, cool. So, okay, so the next item on the agenda, and I know that John had wanted to be here, but he's not, so we'll just move ahead. What we had done, and I'm going to actually bring back the agenda because I think a lot of the language is there. So is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay. And of course now my hand is raised, even though there's no reason for it to be raised, and I have no ability to unraise it. Sorry about that. So we took a recommendation from Planning and Zoning to the governing board regarding SB 9 and a resolution. And what we wanted the city council to do, or city planning, is to prepare. It's basically the city is allowed to prepare an ordinance or a memorandum actually that carves out how it's applying SB 9 without actually voiding any part of the state legislation. So SB 9 essentially allows single family lots to be subdivided. and additional units built. What we thought is a thing to add to the city's memorandum of agreement, I think is what it'll end up being, is that along with historic districts, which are carved out as exempt in the state legislation, but allows the local city governments to also carve out special districts, that they add in character residential overlay districts or other city council adopted zones or districts that where what's adopted are development standards and or design criteria that would maintain the character of the districts and historic structures while still accommodating new units with ministerial review, and to provide guidelines for the timing of review and approvals. Because several board members also are concerned that this state legislation doesn't mention affordability, they asked us to go back to the drawing board basically and try to add language regarding affordability. So I'm going to stop the share if everyone's seen what we have on the agenda again, and say that, and take my hand down. It's interesting that it wouldn't go up when I wanted it to. So Dorit in particular wanted to try to arrive tonight, but she is at work. So I've got two missing people, but anyway, two missing people. But what Dorit had asked us if we can do is add some language which would include, if I can find her email. So here, I'm just going to post it. In the chat. So this is from Dorit. And I'm going to try. So is that everyone able to see that?
No, I don't see anything.
In the chat.
Hi, it's Grace. You. Hello.
Come on in. Hi, Grace.
Hi. Thanks for letting me in.
Recording in progress.
I'm only able to
Okay. Hi, Grace.
use
So,
chat on this spot.
okay, so what I'm wondering is, can people see what I posted in the chat? This is from Dorit, not from Laura. It says, I know my objection to the SB9 letter not including affordable housing may lead the item to go back to the committee, yes. But here she wants to suggest a few ideas for the new letter that will ensure working class homeowners in our community and all of Los Angeles could have the opportunity to benefit for building more units on their property. So one thought was to support mandatory affordable units on each property, but the city can have an income-based waiver program for lower income property owners, allowing them not to include in affordable units. That's one idea. Two would be waiving fees. An incentive for offering affordable housing would be such as waiving a business tax, or for properties subject to the RSO, waiving those fees. Her third idea would be financial assistance, actually loans, for lower income homeowners to build SB9 units with the affordable housing component. So, so those are three different ideas to supplement our original discussion on the SB9 resolution. And Donna has her hand up. And Teresa has her hand up.
Am I reading the idea that support mandatory affordable unit on each property?
Well, yes. I mean, these are, I think you can see the little indent. She had three ideas. I'm pretty sure the first one that says mandatory might not fly if we took that back to the board. But yes, one idea is a mandate. One idea is waiving fees as an incentive. And the third idea would be to financial assistance, loans to lower income housing for them to build SB9 units with an affordable housing component. So three
Must be
different
a
ideas.
mistake, the mandatory idea of telling people they have to build an affordable unit on it, a property. That doesn't make sense.
Okay, does anybody want to discuss that, or should I move on to Teresa?
I concur with Donna. I think it's legally fraught, and it's, the language is so vague. There is no definition of what mandatory affordable built unit is. I mean, we have different degrees of affordability defined by area mean incomes, but I just find that yeah, I think it would be very legally unenforceable. So to me, that one's fraud. I think if you're going to go down that path, anything that's an incentive is a better than what's a whip.
Okay. Teresa.
Thank you, Laura. First, I would like to say in the chat, if you could please make a note that these are the comments from Dorit, so it's clear to anybody who sees the chat in the future. Also, her statement here where she says can have the opportunity to benefit for building more units on their property. I already have a problem with SB9 and the density that it's going to create in communities. The possibility that mature trees or trees will have to be removed, and all the infrastructure problems that we're going to have, water, parking, all of the other things that come with SB9. But the idea that we want to expand it so even more units can be put on a lot, I don't agree with. Also, I am with Donna and Chris, nothing mandatory. Why in the world would I build an ADU or put some units on my property if I am not going to be able to get market rate? I don't think this SB9 really helps the affordable issues that we have here anyway. But certainly as a homeowner, you can't mandate that I have affordable housing. Why in the world is it going to cost me $200,000 to turn my garage into an ADU? Why in the world would I not try to get market rate? So I agree with both of them. So I'll wait for the other two items when we discuss it. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone else have any comment again on the first idea, which would be to support a mandatory affordable unit on each property that takes advantage of the SB9 subdivisions? Can I assume no one is who's here is in support of it? Is there anybody here supporting it? Okay, so no. Moving on, so let's just discuss them one at a time. Waiving fees as an incentive for offering housing, affordable housing. What do we think about that idea? Anybody?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Laura?
Well, her second idea is to
the waiving fees.
Waiving, well, she spelled it wrong. W-A-I, waiver of fees. So in other words, I don't know what fees could be waived, but when you go to build a unit, when you go to subdivide and then build a unit, it's not free. I mean, you're gonna have to pay. Fees have to be established to do the subdivision, and then the fees we already know. There's building and safety fees. There's business tax on rentals. There's annual fees to the housing department for the rent stabilization ordinance, SCEP fees. I mean, there's rent registration fees, and there's separately SCEP, which is Systematic Code Enforcement Program, which is every couple of years inspections. So, and they just doubled the fees this year. So Chris has her hand up.
There's also, when you make an improvement over, I don't know if they've changed the number, but any development of that size on existing property would have an underlying property, the baseline for the property tax would be reassessed and would change significantly. So, but if there's going to be an effort to make affordability part of SB 9, I think an incentive system through maybe the waiving of certain fees or delayed property tax assessments, or whatever studies would show were feasible and doable, an incentive system would be about the only way that I feel I could support it, and I think would be workable. The other two, I just don't see a legal path where it would actually come to fruition. But
I'm raising my own hand. I think the property tax issue is the biggest one, but the city council has no ability to influence it. In other words, the county of Los Angeles will automatically reassess a property when there's new construction. And in particular, if you own a 7,500, well, let's say 7,000 square foot lot, because I can do the math better in my mind. And Dorit's joining the meeting, by the way. But if you own a 7,000 square foot lot and put in and subdivide it into two separate 3,500 square foot lots, and then build 2 units on each, I don't see how the county of Los Angeles is going to do anything except raise the property taxes, especially on the new lot with 2 new structures. So, hi, Dorit. We're discussing, and I'm coughing, sorry. We're discussing your ideas for adding affordability components to the RSB 9 resolution. And we're on the second one right now of incentivizing.
I just heard you say something about property tax. Property tax is county, and we couldn't, the city.
Yes, that's exactly
not be able
right.
to get the county to play.
Yeah, that is what I was saying. Oh, which kitty is this?
That's Whiskers.
Very cute. And he's dressed up for the holidays.
Let's stay on topic. Everyone, please.
Agree.
Thanks.
Okay, so Chris, you like the idea of incentives, but and then my comment was that we need to stick to the ones that the city might have control on.
Okay.
So that would be business tax, RSO and SCEPS fees, certain building and safety fees,
fees for the
and whatever, even though the subdivision itself would be ministerial, it doesn't mean it would be free. Now, the city would normally, the fees would, in theory, be reflective of their own costs. So they evaluate the cost of the salaried personnel who have to go through the applications and make decisions and write up whatever. So we would want them on this to instead, if at least one affordable unit was being provided, treat it more like HPOZ or HCM type, the historic preservation applications, where they do not attempt to do full cost recovery. So we would say waive full cost recovery on fees, something to that effect.
Sorry, I was late. I thought I was told this to start at 8. Have we already gone through the waiver process? Like someone did we not like the waiver process?
Your first idea that was not liked, sorry.
Okay.
And yes, I did say, I'm sorry, I couldn't guarantee what time we would get to it. It's just,
I just got home,
moved
so
it to the
good.
second item, sorry.
All's good.
Okay, so Chris, can you chat, or should I write in the chat and try to reflect?
I have no, I'm not wedded to any particular fee being identified, but I am in favor that if we go down this path, that it should be one of positive incentives rather than something that's mandatory and punitive. I think I think we have to, the city should work with an incentive program that might promote people choosing to do this, to work for an affordable unit.
Me too. I prefer the notion of, we know it might be a pain in your rear, but here's some benefits that we're going to give you, even if they probably aren't going to make that much of a difference in the long run. But here's some benefits if you will make one unit affordable. You don't have to pay any of your fees. That actually is my favorite one.
I'm typing a little bit here. Not
Teresa has her hand up. Can Teresa talk?
Yes,
while you
please
type?
go.
Oh, thank you,
Sorry,
Dorit, and thank
sorry.
you, Laura. No, that's okay. I just trying to follow protocol. I just want to ask Grace. Grace put in a couple of interesting comments in the chat, and if I don't know what her circumstances are right now. Maybe she can only chat, not talk. But I'd like to hear her comments. I'd like to have a discussion on her comments in the chat if she's available to do that.
Yeah. Grace, are you available to speak?
She said thank you. Maybe she's took a vow of silence this evening. Her computer is old.
Got it.
I think
Okay,
what she did say sounds like what all the rest are saying. Let's be positive, not negative.
Yeah.
Let's reward you for doing something and not punish you for not.
Right. Okay. So I started chatting in some of the dollars that could be waived. Does anybody have any other idea so what I put in the chat was business tax. The housing department has RSO which is rent stabilization ordinance fees and SCEP fees annually. And then what I was discussing, not requiring full cost recovery for case processing of the subdivision. Dorit.
A lot of these units won't be required to do RSO, will they?
I think they would.
Well,
why wouldn't they, in your opinion?
If you take a single family home that was built in, say, 1950s, never been a rental unit, it's not in the rent stabilization ordinance.
Correct.
And what you build would be new, so it's built past 1976, and isn't everything built before 1976 subject to rent stabilization ordinance, but not after, unless what was built after tore down something that
I think the exception to the exception is if an affordable unit is a covenanted unit, and I think once it's covenanted with the housing department, it also is also RSO. I could be wrong. I don't know.
I believe that's right. I think that's what we were hearing regarding units in new developments along TOC corridors, that once those units are established as affordable or for low income or exceptionally low income, that it's got a 50-year covenant on it, and that renews rolls if there's been any additional investment in the property at that 50-year point. But that keeps, that basically makes it an RSO unit.
Grace,
Dorit, is your hand back up?
It's back up because I want to, our silent friend Grace, I'd like to point out what she said here is pretty darn good. And I like the idea of loans. I was going to put that in my suggestions, except I couldn't figure out what funding source those loans would come from. I do know that the city has first-time home buyers programs and other loan programs for people. I know that for our house, when we bought it, we got what's called a silent second, which meant we lived there 10 years, never had to pay it back. So, and it was for only people who were, who who qualified for a lower income. So we could definitely ask them to use that program to help fund some people who are going to make their units affordable if they're fit the income criteria. There's a bit of paperwork involved and it could be a bother, but it's still, if you're willing to go through the construction, you're willing to go through some paperwork.
Okay, so Teresa.
I'm just going to throw this out since we're kind of brainstorming.
Yeah.
And we're talking about incentives. Could there be an incentive if you planted a native tree or you were able to, you know, I know we're talking about density and housing and everything, but if somehow you were planted trees to provide shade or something, maybe there could be an incentive package for that too. I don't know.
Chris, and then I'm going to respond. Chris?
I'm concerned about rating one affordability program to try to fund another one. It's not like the city is flushed with funds for the first-time home buyers program or the kinds of incentive programs to help people get into housing that Dorit just referred to. I would hate to see those funds basically parsed between two programs, so there's very little that does very much for anybody. That's my only concern. I think you need to have a dedicated source of fundings that the city would either, if it was going to do a loan program, it would have to be able to demonstrate where that new money was going to come from and budget for it.
So John has arrived.
I have arrived and the event I'm at is a sit-down dinner and I might have to go. So now it's my time to tap in. I tell you, I'm triple booked all week, but anyway, proceed please.
Okay.
I'm at the
darn,
Biltmore,
I was
by the
going to comment on something that was said too ago and I've already lost it. John, what we're discussing is incentives, possible incentives for affordable housing with that SB 9 rather than mandatory or punishments.
So I think, did Dorit send in her ideas?
Yeah, and she's here and I posted them in the chat.
I thought all of her ideas, I didn't opine on this because I couldn't because of Brown Act, but now I can. I thought all of those ideas were in the right vein as basically incentivizing people to do affordable, keeping, you know, the standard state law, but then providing, whether it's expediting process to get plan check. It could be waiving fees. It could be, I think incentives is the way to go to make it easier for folks with lesser means to consider it and also make it worthwhile. And that's, I was all for all that. So what's been discussed thus far?
That what you just said.
Yeah.
And maybe some, if there's city funds or loan funds from the city.
Yep. What else was, Dorit had a couple of more specific ideas than general incentivization. And I thought both of them were really good. Yeah,
well, we sort of didn't like the number one of the mandatory one. So mandatory affordable unit, no matter what, that's out.
Yeah, I'm against that. That's a disincentivization. I'd rather incentivize affordable. And even if it takes public funds or a reduction of public fees or whatever it is, I'm all for that.
And there was also a waiver for someone who was, say, 80% area median income. They could be waived having to have an affordable. That's not my favorite either, but it was a suggestion.
I think it's not.
The group didn't like it.
I think in general, we don't need to come up with the exact policy, but I think having a direction for people to go in or for someone to consider to plant the seeds, they don't penalize or don't force, but even putting it on a sliding scale of who can afford to do this if they want to provide affordable housing. You know, the value that they have is land, Maybe it's a tax incentive. Maybe it's the valuation of their property doesn't go up by X amount if they pledge to make things affordable. Because if someone has a property that's valued has a valuation of 100,000 and it goes up to 1.5 million, that's a huge tax burden on someone who wasn't used to paying taxes. Maybe that's somewhere to go is a lessening of the property tax or a tax credit, because reevaluations for people who've lived here for 30 years is not fun.
Could I speak on that? We
Yes,
have a
Dory.
property in Silver Lake that our current property tax is a little bit under 2,000 a year, because we bought it really cheap. We looked at adding some units, and our property tax would have gone up to about 7,000 a year. So,
Right.
and we tried to say, hey, we're going to do ADUs. We got the city involved, and the county says no. The county was not going to play. The county said they will do what they're going to do. So I'm just saying, from my own personal experience, the county doesn't play.
I think this is a great idea. I know it's the county, not this is what we're talking about today, is city. But I think if there can be something that can lessen the tax burden. I know when I built my non-ADU accessory structure in the back, my taxes doubled. I couldn't believe it. It's like, I wouldn't have built this. But imagine if I built it and then provided affordable housing for someone and my taxes double. I'm not going to do it. So if there's something to ease the tax burden, I'd be in favor of that.
Well, the city could be very creative and create a 501c3 charitable entity that could somehow be the fiscal sponsor of these affordable units. And if it's a 501c3, I think it does not pay taxes, but it has to be really, really, really creative.
And
I don't see the city being really, really, really creative. I'm just saying. Dory.
I think great ideas in a perfect world, but we live in Los Angeles. So love where your mind went, Laura, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Oh, no, I agree. I mean, we're having enough trouble even with the Historical Properties Contract Mills Act program, where if people want to do ADUs with that, it just kills the Mills Act as well, because they bifurcate. And they not only this is county assessor, not only value the ADU at current mark, whatever it is, but they then treat the owner of the property as no longer a homeowner occupant single family, but rather as an investment property, and it's a completely different financial calculation, different factor. So they want their money. Chris.
Well, two things that people should keep in mind right now. I mean, over the last decade and even in this last fiscal year, LA is creating more housing than any other city of its size, in its range of size in America. The city is moving forward dramatically with creating housing. That doesn't mean it's solving all of our housing problems. So the city is not always should be everybody's dog that they kick. But the other issue that comes up, even at the county level, effectively with SB 9, you could triple the residential density, and the county has services and infrastructures that those monies, that property tax money, has to maintain. So it's not that they just don't want to play, it's that they have to balance the fees for the things that they have to maintain, and if you triple the use loads, you're gonna up the costs, for everything from sewer lines and schools and so there's no free lunch here, and everyone has to kind of share in the solution. But it's not just that they're obstinate and difficult people. They have their own responsibilities. They have they have to fiscally cover. So you need to look creatively, as Laura said. And
so I would recommend, I need to get into dinner because it's a sit down, which I didn't realize when I got here. I'm in favor of our motion as we passed it with and I'm not sure I can't see because I'm on my phone, who's here as far as the voting capacity. So I don't ever want to bow out on a vote, but I'd be in favor of any, rather than legislate and find the solution, is to put the seed in the bug in the ear, and however we can do
Well,
that.
incentives.
Yeah, it's an incentive approach, and whether it's tax breaks or fee break or expediting, anything that allows people who aren't super wealthy to take advantage of this and also provide affordable housing.
Okay, John, before you jump off, and I want to ask
Yep.
everybody who's a board member this, as John knows, suddenly Paul Koretz pulled the trigger and did a motion for this SB9. And then Nuri Martinez did not schedule it for the city council. The way it sits right now is the planning department's going to do the work. So there's something done by December 31st, the deadline for the state, and then the council will ratify perhaps later. But because we, UNNC, dumped it back on planning and zoning, we don't have anything to do. So my question for all of those who are board members, we do have already scheduled for Tuesday at 8 o'clock, Tuesday the 21st at 8 o'clock, that special meeting for public safety. Do you, for those who are here, and then I'll do a quorum check with others, if we have a special governing board meeting at, say, 7:30, same night, 7:30 to 8, how many of those who are board members are able to attend that?
What's the date, Laura?
Tuesday, December 21, 7:30.
I can make that.
Okay, Teresa, Dorit, Laura. Okay, John. So that I guess I'm looking in the chat for Grace. And what about Chris?
Grace, you says yes.
Grace says yes, and Chris is pondering. Okay, well, I'm going to do a quorum check and see if we can pull this off so that we can at least write a memo to the planning department and hope for the best.
I say yes.
Okay. Right. But
Okay.
I'll need 13 people, so it's not just us here.
Enjoy your dinner, John.
This is a good start.
It sounds like we're all on the same page, which makes me very happy, very
Yeah.
proud of that. So thanks, everybody. I'm gonna go join. This is the Biltmore, by the way.
I was
Also
going to say, that's very
restored.
pretty where you are.
Yeah,
And you look snazzy.
the Biltmore has been really, they've been going room by room and doing all the ceilings and all the plasterwork. It's beautiful. So, okay, thanks,
Enjoy your
everybody.
evening.
Thanks. Bye.
Hi, John.
Hi, John.
Okay, so guys, do you think we need a motion here that's very different than what has been in the chat? Dorit.
I'd like us to say something of add incentives and such as, but leave it open to smarter people at the city than us who might come up with other incentives. So, incentives we've come up with, but don't limit it to just those.
And to those, include as a possible incentive funding from city sources. Right? I mean, instead of making two different things, a loan program, a soft second, whatever, they would be one of the
fees.
Pardon?
You must say waiving fees.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I had already written the whole thing. Must include waiving fees. Explanation point. How's that? But not limited to the ones we've discussed here tonight.
Yes.
Correct? Okay.
See.
So who makes this motion that's so casual, but it would incorporate the things we've discussed above? I'm having a hard time going up and down the chat to figure out everything that's been discussed.
I'm going to make the motion. This is Dorit.
Okay, anybody second? Okay, Laura seconds. Okay. And Grace seconds, so that's better. Let's see. Grace. Official second. Okay, spelled wrong, sorry. So, all right, so we discussed a lot of incentives, all of those would be included. And we have also discussed, if I can get quorum, calling a meeting before the meeting on Tuesday. Can we do a vote? Like all in favor of supplementing the original SB9 motion from planning and zoning to include encouraging affordability by having incentives, including waiving of fees and potentially city-sponsored loans from city funds and other, not limited to these incentives, the city should be creative about other incentives.
Could we say that waiving of the fees is only for income qualified persons? I'm sorry, the loans are only for income qualified persons?
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, I'm saying sure, but remember now Grace is the second. So she would have to also say sure, and she does. Okay. So that is broadly speaking the motion. I'm hoping I am not going to be required to rewrite the whole thing. And shall we vote? So I'm going to say all in favor, please raise either your video hand or your virtual hand. And Grace voted yes in the chat. Anyone may vote. Okay. So I'm going to ask you to lower your hands and see if there's any opposition. So I've got Donna as a yes, Dorita as a yes, Laura was yes, Grace was yes. Is there any opposition? Raise your hand, please. Okay. And thank you. All right.
Going to abstain.
Hi, Teresa.
I'm going to abstain.
And Teresa abstains. Motion passes. So again, I'm going to try and see if we can have a special meeting, if we can achieve quorum, so that it's more proper for us to write a letter to the planning department. Simply because if they need to decide by the 31st of December, we're out of time. So we'll see if we can. I just don't know if we would or will not be able to do that in the holiday season. Okay. Anything else on this topic, or shall we move on to the next agenda item, which is simply the follow-up to previous cases, ENS, and old business? Okay, so the main follow-up is that tomorrow morning at 8:30 is the public hearing on Crenshaw Crossing. And that is the major project at, at Crenshaw and Exposition. And it, we ended up voting to continue to support the project, and that, however, there's a big however, because of the sort of last minute knowledge of this, our caveat is to not support it unless they also preserve the sycamore grove, which is our city protected trees, that is located on the easterly parcel and on the easterly portion of the parcel within the UNNC footprint. And Teresa, do you want to explain something more while I actually post the Zoom links in the chat? That's what I'm doing. But I'm sorry, I'm being like brain dead, but can you explain this a little better, please? Because my brain is gone.
Okay. The Crenshaw Crossing project started in 2018, so I know it's been going on for a long while. But just in November, it came to our attention that there is a protected sycamore grove, which was identified in the tree report by the developer to be removed. The sycamore trees are one of 4 species of trees that are protected in Los Angeles. The trees are 65 feet tall. They're rated B or B minus, which is fine health-wise. And what we would like to do is see a reconfiguration of the project so that the sycamores can be part of a larger green space. So Planning and Zoning a few weeks ago had a meeting, the Community Forest Advisory Committee, which are the members are appointed by the mayor. The acronym is CFAC. The chairperson and vice chair, and a couple of board members, the representative from CD10 and CD8 also came and spoke. And the Planning and Zoning, we put forth the motion that we agreed to move forward with the Crenshaw project with the caveat that the sycamores are protected during construction and preserved. And we went to the board and it passed. The motion was presented to the governing board and it passed. And Laura put together a CIS and also an unbelievable letter, which she will that she submitted to planning, and she will speak tomorrow at the commission hearing.
Thank you, Teresa. I'm posting links. Does anybody have any questions while I'm posting these 2 links for where materials are? And this is in somewhat reverse order.
Laura, I'm sorry, just.
Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Am I correct that at the presentation that we all saw, that the developer and the project, to make these changes has the potential to kill this project? Is that something that's at risk here? Because I think the community needs to really know what the trade-offs might be, because this is 100% affordable housing, the thing that we all say we are working and striving to do. And it also brings a full service grocery to an area that's been a food desert. So I just want to know what the impact is, and do we actually know what the impact would be?
Okay, well, I think Teresa would like to answer that, and then I will follow Teresa.
Thank you. Well, first, Chris, I don't think it's 100% affordable. We're asking for that, but only if if we can receive funds from the county, but it is not 100% affordable. But as a community, we have to decide what is important, what elements of our quality of life are important. Yes, we need housing, but do we want to sacrifice trees that are certainly over 50 years old, that have a beautiful canopy in the spring? They're deciduous, so right now they're dropping their leaves. I didn't hear them say that this project was going to be canceled if they can't work around the sycamore grove, but I think there's plenty of creative design that can be worked if someone is willing to step up and meet the challenge of that. It's easy to say, oh, well, this is just too hard, we can't do it. How about you look at it as an opportunity to do some really creative design? So that's my thoughts on that, Laura.
Yeah, and I see other hands, but I had called on me for after you. So Chris, and remember, we did talk about this at the board and we did vote already. So our vote is our vote. But no, I feel that it would be possible to tweak the design, because the sycamore trees are just a little in and a little out of the building. But if you just tweak the building part to, you can tweak the design, move the building corner out, and then I mean, it would take a creative architect and then add a little, because you're expanding the plaza by keeping the trees. So you could add a little bit of building on the other side of the plaza. It just wouldn't be the perfect square it is now. It'd be a more interesting shape, perhaps. That's one way to do it. The bigger deal is also convincing LADWP to move its, its box, that they want to expand also where the Grove is. So we have a double problem here. So this won't, if the Planning Commission thinks it's a good idea and asks for a redesign, it won't kill the project because it's not a major redesign, my opinion. Donna, then Dorit.
The projects in Watts are affordable. What we need to do is talk about what we want to do about our community. We've accepted whatever was offered too long. And my point, the idea of them coming in, knowing what they knew about the trees and deciding to do what they did, they're there because they're making money, not because they love us and they think our community is so wonderful. So that's my attitude.
Right, and Dorit.
It's always so hard to follow Donna. She just makes such great points and just says it so wonderfully. At the meeting, I'm looking at my notes I took during the meeting. They said that the grocery store would have a cow or just like not cooperate or maybe even pull out if we kept the trees, because the grocery store is finicky, and that's the word that they used, was finicky, and wants to have it's set up and the store set up in a certain way and have the built in a certain way that they can't keep the trees because it would mess up the grocery store, how grocery stores like to do things. Another thing they said during the meeting, and like I'm going by my notes here, was they might have to reduce the units to keep the trees. I'm thinking like 1 unit maybe, but they didn't say number of units. And as far as the affordability, they're seeking funds from the county from what's called project-based, it's project-based Section 8. So it's vouchers come with the building is affordable, and a certain amount of the rent is paid through what is known as the HUD program, Section 8. So they're seeking that affordability thing, monies. They haven't gotten it yet. They feel pretty darn confident, and this is from my notes, that they'll get it. So those are from the notes from the last meeting. Not taking a stand one way or another, just wanted to share what my little scribbles say.
Right. Well, yeah, and I've put my own hand up so that I could call on me next and then Chris after me. The grocery store requires a X amount of square feet. There is no doubt about it. And I don't think anyone is here proposing, or that we voted to propose, that there be less square footage in this building, just a slight reconfiguration. This may not happen. Oh, I have no crystal ball as to the percentage chance of it happening. And again, UNNC's board already voted. Let's just be clear, that we're going to take a fly at this. But we also heard, let's not value trees over people. And then essentially we voted that people need trees. And, we did some subsequent research, or I had started doing research for a different project, frankly. And our community, and not just ours, but South LA, all the neighborhood councils in South LA where the tree inventories had already been done, we have half or less the number of trees that the Hancock Park, Encino, Studio City, I mean, all these other neighborhood councils have more than twice the number of trees than we do. Well, not UNNC, we haven't done ours, but then West Adams Neighborhood Council, then North Area Neighborhood Development Council, Nandasi, the Empowerment Congress West, all of our South LA, Southwest LA neighborhood councils have half or less the number of trees than the other neighborhood councils in other parts of town. So there's city initiatives, that supposedly are requiring the retention of mature trees in tree poor communities and the planting of double the number of trees in tree poor communities. So my feeling is we start here and we start with our ask here, which we may or may not get, but there's no reason not to ask that, you know, and I will emphasize, and we've already voted. Chris.
I agree that we have voted and we're going to see how this comes out. But I just think it is important for our community when there are potential gains and losses that we just present that very openly and equitably, so that community has a real choice, not a biased choice because other things were kind of, you know, there are 3 trees here, they are sycamores, they're a certain size. I don't think we know their age, but it may be, there may be trade-offs. And so the community should, but always have the knowledge of those trade-offs to be able to make informed choices. And we go with their choice. Thank you.
Okay, Teresa.
I just wanted to add one other thing, that Metro with the last planning and zoning meeting when we discussed this, Metro was also there, and they said that they had no idea that there was such interest in the community to preserve the trees, and they were going to look into moving their utility boxes or structures to accommodate the trees. So I mean, I haven't been able to get a hold of LADWP. I'm working on that, but I'm hoping that they will also try to move their utility hub so we can do that. And yes, I agree with you, Chris, that all the elements, everybody should know all of the trade-offs. But it was hard for us to even know about the trees because they didn't present a landscaping plan. Right. They buried the tree report deep into all the planning documents. So we didn't even have access to those. Laura had to find them. And then at the meeting, they said, oh, well, here's your tree report. So that's just what I want to say. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Teresa. Yeah, I feel like neighborhood council shouldn't have to be investigative reporters, you know, but then again, we can be, and we did. So, I mean, the shame of this is, frankly, that Metro, when they did the RFP, could have easily put in the request for proposal that all the developers would be responding to. You must maintain the small grove of sycamores, they are protected trees. And then that would have been that, and any design would have protected them. But that didn't happen. It didn't happen. I mean, this has been going on 6, 7, 8 years, I think, but it didn't happen. Donna has her hand up.
Laura, you know why, okay? They just don't think we have enough sense to pay attention to things like that. And unfortunately, they've been right.
Yeah, they were right. We didn't even notice. I mean, the trees have been behind construction fencing for years. We didn't even notice.
That's just how we got the 10 freeway, because they were right.
Yeah. Okay, Chris, you still have your hand up. I don't know if you had something more to say.
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
So we're not going to take another action on this, but I did want to share that there, you know, and I put all of the stuff in the chat. There is a meeting tomorrow. I will be speaking on behalf of UNNC, and God knows, maybe 90 seconds if I'm lucky. I mean, I'll be guaranteed an ability to speak, but not necessarily much extended time. But anyone may go to the meeting and speak. They just cannot identify themselves as speaking on behalf of UNNC. You can say, I'm a neighbor, I'm a concerned citizen. As a matter of identification, I am on the UNNC board, but I'm speaking as an individual. And if you don't agree with what UNNC voted for, you're welcome to say that, you know, because it's a public meeting and there is nothing in serving on a neighborhood council board that eliminates your freedom of speech. You know, I know there are people at the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment who would disagree with me, but nothing whatsoever eliminates your freedom of speech. Okay. Are there any other comments on this or any other follow-up to any previous cases? Oh, I know there is. ENS or old business. And Donna and Teresa, I think you have something to tell us about a fence. Perhaps.
This is 4,000 West Adams Boulevard. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, because isn't there something pretty there now?
Yes. Do you want to talk about that, Donna? Or do you want me to talk about it?
You can talk about it, Teresa. I'm just hoping we'll get the other one done.
Yes. So there was a wooden fence that was put up on 4,000 West Adams Boulevard. In the past, we talked about the fact that that Adams was a scenic highway. This was a TIC, which is tenant in common development. The developer put the wooden fence up, then three people bought it, and they had no idea that it was a violation. It went through planning and zoning or building and safety. They ruled against them. UNNC took a position that the fence was a violation. Anyway, they've removed the fence, and now it's a white, I think it's metal, but like a white metal picket fence. It looks lovely. There does seem to be some planting behind it, so maybe it'll be a low hedge. And two structures down is another TIC that has a wooden fence, and I believe that's there's been a filing of violation against that building, and we're just waiting to see how that is ruled.
Okay.
We have trouble with housing or regular violation follow-ups now. We had to fight with the help of many people to get the first one done. So it may take a minute, but the handwriting's on the wall. And I'm sure the people who own the other fence know very well we're coming after you.
Right. And it would be less expensive for them to just comply than to do what the first group did, which was file for, a zoning case. Okay. Anything else, or shall we adjourn?
The last thing, Laura, Myrna's property. They have followed up and they are no longer using that lot. And Bruce Todd is he's been reached out to many times. They've gone over there. The idea of it being a church and having the rights to use the lot for their church and all the other has been addressed. And right now they're in a holding pattern. They're doing their work, whatever they need to in the street on 4th Avenue. The parking lot is not being used. So Myrna's dancing outside the gate. Oh,
good. Okay, thank you. And thank you for keeping track of that one. You never think that cases go on for a dozen years. You think you win and then you're done, but it turns out not so much. Okay, anything else? I think we should adjourn. What say you all? We good?
Yep.
Say good night, everybody.
Good night.
Have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Good night.
And
Good night, everybody.
and don't forget to save the chat if you want all that fun information about the hearing tomorrow.
Good night.
And of course, I'll automatically save it.
Good night, Grace. Good night, Gracie. I don't know if anybody else gets that. Okay. Good night, Laura. Thank you very much.
I now I get it. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to end the meeting. Thank you
Okay.
all.
Good night.